And things like Kickstarter cranks, side stands, front end parts, brake parts, all have to be stronger than they need to be.
So the question is, why did you choose to manufacture them yourself?
Oh, well, I had another life in Houston, Texas, in the industrial gas and plastics business. And that business in the late 80s developed to where I could leave my partners with the business and move to Santa Fe and build motorcycles and make motorcycle parts for the rest of my life. I was very lucky.
You couldn't find those parts anywhere else?
Oh no, not the quality that was necessary. Indian never made a side stand that worked for more than 3 or 4 years. I made 14 different side stands. The originals were all failed. They were junk.
Do you only make Indian parts?
No, I made Indian parts for about 12 years. And after 12 years, my sales curve was going at a 45-degree angle. My health was probably going down opposite that. I was working 70-hour weeks. And so I just had a physical crisis. I had to stop. I was working too many hours. It was really killing me. So I stopped making parts for 2 years, got my health back, and decided, well, making parts is really a lot of fun, but I don't want to make it into an obsession and to where it was killing my health. So I decided to pick motorcycles that I could make parts for that people really wouldn't buy. My other business supports me. You know, the other business that I made supported me, so I didn't have to make money. Does that make sense?
You were creating parts that people wouldn't buy? Did I hear that correctly?
Well, yeah, not like they did the Indian parts.
Oh, I see.
So I could. What I did, I dropped the whole thing down 50%, the volume of production, because Vincent motorcycles and pre-World War II Harleys, mainly VLs and JDs, don't need as many parts as Indians do.
And you did that because you were afflicted by success?
Pretty much. Yeah, it just wore me out.
It just wore you out. It wasn't fun.
No. What happened was, one of the things that sort of the light bulb went off, I was looking at QuickBooks and how many pieces I made of a certain item. And because I review that every 6 months or so, I look and see how many did you make of these and those. I found out that I just finished making 1,000 what we call left-hand shifter bell cranks on Indians. If you have an Indian chief and you want a left-hand shifter like a Harley, you have to have a special bell crank on the end of it. And I made 1,000 of them because I was the only person in the world that made them. And I knew that something was wrong there. I'd made too many of one thing. It was getting boring. It wasn't challenging anymore. Plus the health issue. I stopped.
Wow.
In 2 years, I just sold parts that I had in stock and then got the bug back again because my health started coming back because I was really taking care of myself a lot better. And David Serafan introduced me to Harleys because he lived around the corner. He was the 45 Harley guy. I bought a 1938 UH from him, an 80 cubic inch flathead Harley. And then another friend of mine had a 36 VL, and then another buddy of mine had a 33 VLD, real rare bike. And then John Newman, the Cannonball guy, had a 28 JD, and they were all different. They all needed parts. Nobody was making them. So I bought them. I have something to put the parts on.
Are the parts you make primarily reproductions of, things like kickstands, or do you ever get into the performance aspect?
No. I'll get into some fashion aspects. I'll redesign something or make a new something that I think is pretty cool.
For instance?
Oh gosh, I'd have to show you one.
You can, if you can describe it, and then I'll pick it up in B-roll later.
On Vincent's, there are nuts in 2 or 3 different parts of the motorcycle, and so I made them to where they have Vincent written on them or HRD written on them, and then I nickel plate them. Yeah. But they're chromoly, so they're heat treated too, so they're equivalent of a grade 5 nut. They're a safe nut. but you can do them with your fingers as opposed to having to have a wrench. And they're on things that you, like a battery box, you know, you're always taking that nut off and putting it back on again.
And normally I would ask, Vincent, how big a market is that? But
Really tiny.
But seeing how you mentioned that you're trying to cut back.
There were 13,000 motorcycles Vincent's made after World War II.
Yeah.
And the United States only got 2,500. And the rest went all over the world. And a third of them were single-cylinder Vincents, and a lot of those have been scrapped or cannibalized for parts. So there was only two-thirds, so 7,000 V-twins. While they're highly desirable and pretty expensive motorcycles, and most of them have been salvaged as much as they can, there's just not that big a market.
How many of the big companies come to you and say, could you make some parts for us, please?
Just one once, Ted's V-twin, and I, politely said no. That's it.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
But you didn't go for it.
Well, yeah, remember, I don't have a financial interest. I don't have to make lots of money. The only people that have ever made lots of money in the antique motorcycle business are people that get things made overseas, primarily China. In the Indian world, it was Bob Stark Light Cycle. He started that in a big way. Jerry Greer's is doing it now, but he's real careful about his quality control. Not perfect. And then Ted's V-twin and J&P Cycle and all those guys, they have stuff made overseas. Small American shops, they're not going to make any money like that.
As I've been talking more and more to the vintage people, I always ask the question about the next generation. Do you have any thoughts on where vintage motorcycles will go? You picked it up not knowing when you were, 19?
Mm-hmm.
What about a 19-year-old today who wants to get into an old Indian or Harley?
I really don't care. Guys have asked me, well, don't you have somebody apprenticing and all that? So in 1905, I'm going to tell somebody to come join my buggy whip company and horseshoe manufacturing and buckboard wheel making. No, do something else. This is my generation did this.
And you're not concerned at all that...
No, when I'm gone, there's be very few people that are interested in fixing the old motorcycles. They'll collect them as certificates of deposit.
But what about, in general, about an appreciation for quality and that sort of thing? It seems that, today, if you can't download it, there's a whole generation that isn't interested in it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I've thought about quality. Where did my idea of quality come from? And I really don't know, but other than I was born with it. It's just innate, just how I'm made. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're born caring about quality or you're not. I think you could be trained into it like an apprenticeship program, but I was born with it. I wasn't born very good at it, but I was born with the idea of it.
How do you feel about how good you are at it now?
Eye-hand coordination's pretty good, but I know people that are really good at making things, and I sure am glad they're my friends. Like the guy that does my precision machining, Van Bear, he's across Santa Fe. He's great. Mosier is fabulous. If I wasn't friends with those two guys, those motorcycles wouldn't be running very often. Just because they really know their stuff and they're happy to help me out. So I've just built all this stuff. I've built, I've been somewhat creative. I do think outside the box because I never was trained to do this. But I take advice from people that are willing to give it, that know what they're doing. And it's really been fun.
As I look around your shop, I notice you have an interest in memorabilia.
Yes, Indian memorabilia is really hard to find.
Yeah.
And so I don't have that much, but there isn't that much out there. A lot of Harley stuff, very little Indian stuff.
And you were saying that these signs are not...
Well, there's the two right there are the real deals.
Mike, to hear you talk, it's like you embody the days when American quality was number one.
I can afford to do it. The average guy can't do it. I subsidize myself. I just can't emphasize that enough. I subsidize myself. Oh, I make money at what I do. I don't lose money, but I do have to subsidize myself. And I do rely on all these wonderful people that know more than I do that are willing to talk to me. That's the key.
Yeah, you mentioned that over and over again.
Because it's so important.
Yeah. Would you take on an apprentice if someone showed interest in quality like you do?
No, I like to work by myself.
Yeah.
Except when I consult with people. That's my social life. Well, there's a little more than that. But that's my fun times.
How often do you get a chance to get out and ride?
Oh, I ride every other day. It may just be town and back. I think weekend after this, I'm going to ride to Raton. It'll be a 400-mile round trip. There's a shovelhead chopper gathering. And if it's in New Mexico and it's shovelheads and their choppers, these guys are going to be wonderful to be around. Nice fellas, no posers, really poor New Mexicans. We can't afford anything else. And I'll be taking my 28 JD.
Yeah. Are you developing any parts now that you need to throw on your bike and test like you mentioned earlier? On the Vincent, I'm making a decompression lever. It's you pull it in and it opens both exhaust valves so you can kick the motor over and get it in the right position to make it easier to start. Yeah. There's no mechanical advantage on a Vincent Kickstarter. You just stand on it because of compression. You have to pull the decompression lever in, kick the motor over a little bit past compression, and then you can kick it where it goes. I'd have to demonstrate it to you, but. And that's in development?
Yeah. I think I've got the final version right there.
How long did it take to do that one?
Oh, I did some like 15 years ago, and they didn't work out so well. And so I've been thinking about it for the last 15 years. I had these pile of castings, just how I'm going to do it. It's probably the longest project I've ever attempted. And most of it is just looking at it every day. How are you going to do that? That sort of thing. I finally figured it out.
When you're developing something like that, is there a danger to say, I'm going to keep doing this till it works? Or do you ever go, you know what, I'm giving up on that one?
Oh, I give up on things. But usually when I'm developing something, I'll put it in the middle, like in the middle somewhere where I have to walk past it all the time. where it's there, it's staring at me. I got to look at it.
Yeah.
And usually hard projects take 2 to 3 years. And I get them done. Some I just do right away, because they're pretty easy. But some things like the front forks right there, those are Vincent front forks. That's the hardest thing I ever made. I made all the pieces.
You made all the pieces?
Except for some of the stainless steel nuts. I didn't do those.
I'll get a shot of that after.
Yeah, it's on my Vincent.
Uh-huh.
I made those forks. Took one out of the group. I just made 5 sets of them. And then put them on my Vincent. And then it was like December 15th, really cold. And took it out on the interstate. Took my hands off at 70 miles an hour. Not this. I went this, That's taking your hands off. And it was straight. I didn't die. That was one of my greatest achievements.
Well, I'm glad you didn't die, or this would be a very boring interview.
Yeah, and they've been, I've been relatively successful with them. They're very expensive, so.
Yeah. Is there a waiting list for things you build?
No, I usually have everything in stock.
You don't,
I don't advertise that much. You have to find me. I have a website.
Yeah.
The way most people find me, other than word of mouth, is that they'll type in Vincent motorcycle, then a part number, and hit search, and I show up.
If you want to mention your website, I can run it on the bottom of this, unless you're getting too much hits.
No, it's okay. Mike'sIndianParts.com, or just Michael Breeding. Yeah. Search Michael Breeding, and me and a black guy who's a rap singer in Virginia show up, and I'm not the black guy.
Do you find yourself when you're developing or working on the things that you do so in the zone that if the phone rings, it shocks you, or somebody, hey, it touches you?
Oh, anybody walks in the room and I just freak. I get really focused. We have I have a bell there that my wife rings when she comes into the room. And so I'm used to that tone. It's not real abrupt.
It doesn't.
And I immediately get out of my
Is it hard
my
to
zone.
get into that zone?
No. No, it's another thing I was born with. It's easy to focus.
If the bell doesn't ring, is it hard to get out?
Oh, I get tired. So that breaks it. That breaks it. And also, I have been known to, focus for hours and hours at a time, but as I get older, I'd rather do something else. Mm-hmm. I'll do 5 or 6 different things in those hours at times.
Do you have a set schedule? Like, I'm up at 8, I'm out at 5, or is it just...
No, I have schedules. I'm up at 5:30.
When you first got that bike at 19 years old and you felt that thrill, how different is it now when you get on?
Oh, much better, because I have a pretty good chance I'm going to get where I'm going. Much better. I mean, if you'd have told me that I was going to get on a 28 Harley and actually go somewhere and get there and actually really not have a care but, the whole way, maybe just a little too much oil, bring enough oil, because they do leak. Uh-huh. I just would have never believed it. And 25 years ago, I'd have never thought I could go anywhere on any of my post-war Indian Chiefs, and they're really reliable motorcycles. So riding those motorcycles just takes me away from everything. I always try to put myself in whatever era the motorcycle is. And being in New Mexico, it's pretty easy to do because everything's so remote. You can feel like you're in 1928 in New Mexico real easy.
On your website, how many parts would you say you offer?
Oh, I know I had 450 Indian parts at one time, so hundreds, maybe 300 or 400.
Right. And anyone can go to that website and the part is available?
If it's on my website and has a price next to it, and it doesn't say temporarily out of stock, it's here.
Okay. There you go.
Because I do my own website, and so I'm always upgrading it. Anytime I run out of something or something new, I put it on the site. So the guys can, especially the foreigners, can really depend on it. But foreigners, California and West.
When you pack your bike, how many extra parts and what type of things do you take?
Tools. Every tool that I can think of that I would need to service the bike. Mm-hmm. Like if you need to take the rear wheel off to change a flat, I'd bring all those tools. Mm-hmm. And various other specialty tools, like if I need to adjust the valves or something like that. Mm-hmm. I bring all those with me. And, a bottle of Loctite really helps. I'll bring an extra battery because I'm running the original generator. Oh. It's very dependable, but I'm bringing a battery just so I don't have to push the thing. But there's 2 other tools that you always have with you. One of them is your AAA Plus card, where they'll tow you 100 miles. And the other one is your cell phone.
There you go.
I mean, I never use a cell phone unless I'm riding.
Yeah.
It's one of those cheap ones.
Oh.
But it'll pick up.
Well, speaking of modern technology, is the whole social media thing more homework and bothersome? Or I know you have your website and you certainly do business on that, but what about the rest of it? Instagram, Facebook, and all that. No,
I don't do any.
No.
No, we don't watch television. I read at night or watch Netflix movies.
Yeah.
Watch a half a movie at a time because Margaret goes to sleep after that. Mm-hmm. And it's also fun to watch half a movie, then talk about it the next day, and then watch the rest of it. That's really fun. We watch a lot of foreign films where they actually have talking in them. They actually talk about things. That's fun.
Well, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up to anybody or?
Well, my passion started when I was 19. It carried into I was about 40. I got the opportunity to move to Santa Fe. I needed something to do, and I decided to make parts.
You never guess the places that I've been. You never guess the places that I've been.